Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again in one more Hostfully webinar. Today, we are having the pleasure to have Overlooked to Overbooked again. As you know, we had a very successful webinar with them in the past, and we decided to have it again. So we have Brian and Kati. Thanks for joining us today. And we have Frank for Hostfully. They'll be helping me to host this webinar today. We're going to be talking about how and why to tell the story of your vacation rental. I am Pedro Leal. I am the VP of Business Development for Hostfully. Frank is our Director of Business Development. And Brian and Kati are co-founders of Overlooked to Overbooked. How are you guys feeling today?
We're excited.
Very good.
That's great. Thanks for joining us again. I'll pass the word to Frank. Frank is going to talk a little bit about Hostfully, and then we're going to have Brian and Kati starting our presentation today. If you guys have any questions, as you already know, we have a question section. Feel free to drop your question. We're going to go over them at the end. And we also have a couple polls, so feel free to respond to those polls. And if you have any additional questions as well about the polls or anything else you want to add, send in the question section. We're going to be able to take a look at them. So, all right. There you go, Frank.
All right. Thank you, Pedro. Excited to have this conversation with you again. Again, thank you, Pedro, for first of all, for the introduction, and of course, for Brian and Kati for joining us again on the webinar. And to those of you who joined on today's call, we're excited to have you. So again, just before we start, I just wanted to let you know a little bit more about Hostfully. For those who are not familiar, we're a vacation rental property management software that helps you run your business from tip to tail. We essentially strive to help vacation rental companies and property managers make more money, increase revenue, streamline and automate day-to-day operations, and then just improve the overall traveler experience. Now, Hostfully has two platforms, and they're both completely standalone platforms. So you have the property management platform and the digital guidebook, and they're both fully integrated. So, of course, you're more than welcome to use both of them together, but you also have the option of just using the property management software or just the digital guidebook. So on the property management platform side, we have direct integrations with major OTAs, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, and we also have a bunch of other channels. And really, we work as a channel manager for those OTAs. So Hostfully will be your central software and hub in managing all of these reservations. We also have a great pipeline feature, which is unique to the industry. And here is where you're going to see all your guests and exactly where they are in the process of their booking, and basically manage your operations in different ways with other softwares that are out there. We have a really nice out-of-the-box direct booking website that's available to all of our users. And especially for this day and age, we want as many direct bookings as possible and not to be so reliant on other channels as well. But also included in our software is the automated message, both email and text messages, reports, analytics, payment processors, and a whole lot more to help you run your vacation rental business. And then we have a standalone digital guidebook platform. Now, this is a really unique and beautiful platform. We focus on enhancing the guest's overall experience. We make it easy to share important information to your guest about their trip. So their check-in details, directions, house manual information, and all your favorite recommendations. Again, this aims in boosting your guest experience. It cuts down on communications, and it also has the ability to get you more 5-star ratings. And you also have a great upselling feature to increase your overall income. And let's go to the next slide. Fantastic. Thanks, Pedro. And then, so we also have winning awards for our property management platform. So we're super excited. It's been great. We won Matt Lando's VRMB Keystone Award for the first year they had it for the best vacation rental software. And then they just recently released the Keystone winners for 2021, where we won again. So making us back-to-back winners. One of the main elevators, Terry White, said that Hostfully is one of the best softwares, period, that he's ever seen. Next up is our guidebooks. And we have the same thing on the guidebook side. Erica is a client of ours and basically said the same view as many other, or has the same view as many other of our clients. And here she stated that the guidebook totally blew her away. We saved her a ton of time, and it's also in the guidebook, it makes you look more professional. And it's more professional than a Word document or PDF. So if you haven't tested out our guidebooks yet, We have free trials for all subscriptions, and also one free guidebook for everyone who does want to test us out. So just head over to hostfully.com, click on Guidebooks, and you'll see that right there. And then not only do we have an incredible platform and beautiful guidebooks, we also have great reports and webinars. So we have a variety of reports basically on our website, which I encourage you all to check out at your leisure. It's hostfully.com/2020 report, and it has good selection of reports, future bookings report, multi-channel distribution report, and other reports that have really great insight and can be useful to your business. So again, just encouraging you to check those out directly on our website. We do have a ton to offer you there, along with blog posts and some really cool articles. If you do want any additional information on any of our products, please feel free to reach out to us directly. We're always happy to help coordinate and schedule a one-on-one demo for you. And then without further ado, just want to again introduce you to Brian and Kati, because that's pretty much enough of Hostfully. So I'm just going to go ahead and hand this off to you, Brian and Kati. So y'all feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Frank. Very, very excited to be back with you guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. Once upon a time, isn't that a nice phrase? It just kind of instantly puts you in the mode of like, oh, good, we're going to get to hear a story now. And we are going to talk a lot about stories. This one's going to be a little bit different than last time. We're going to have a lot of practical application, but it's mostly going to be in the second half. The first half, we're going to do a little more philosophical stuff about, well, why would you want to care whether you have a story in your listing as opposed to just a grocery list of what your amenities are and things of that nature. And so the first reason that you would want to care is that hosts at the 99th percentile earn 10 times as much as those at the median or the 50th percentile. So average. The average host is making X amount. The top host is making 10 times that. Now, there are several factors. Not very much of that is attributable to the number of listings. So most of it is what they're doing different, not the volume that they have. And what we would posit that one of the main reasons is because those successful hosts are using stories. And so to achieve similar success, you need to come across online the way that they do. And when you think about that, you think, oh, geez, I never expected when I got into this. Most people who become hosts, they're not trained to be hosts. And then they start cataloging all the different jobs that they're having to do. And they never were planning to have to be a professional photographer, a copywriter, and a marketing expert just to get bookings. But in a sense, you do have to, because one of our catchphrases is, if they don't book, then nobody eats your homemade cookies or drinks your complimentary wine. So it's appropriate that you're putting all this massive emphasis on the guest experience, but it goes to waste if you're not doing the front end of the funnel right and pulling people in. And stories are one of the best ways to do that. And you deserve to be as proud of your listing as you are of the rest of your business. So our job is just help to bridge that gap to make it so that you're as proud of your listing as you are of every aspect of your hosting experience. So that's just a little bit of backdrop for why we're going to talk about stories and why we're going to try and teach you some things that you can do to make your listings even more enticing. So last time, we'll do a couple callbacks. We talked a lot about trust and yearning last time. Trust is the bottom of a foundational pyramid. You have to make sure that the guest can trust you, that you can trust the host when you're booking a place. You want to be able to trust that host implicitly. And then the next stage beyond that is you would like to create some kind of emotional connection with at least some of your photos or some of your copy that makes them think, oh, the search is over. We don't need to go through scrolling through another 100 listings. We know where we're going to stay because I really want to be in that chair right now, or in front of that fireplace, or in that hammock, etc. And stories are part of how you can bring that to life. Now, this significant object story there, my little reminder with the asterisk, that was something I just came across recently. So Kendra Hall wrote a book called Stories That Stick, and she tells a story about an experiment that was done on eBay where they got 100, I think it was 200 separate writers, and they bought 200 items for about $1 and something a piece. They only spent $250 in total to have 200 items put up on eBay, and each one was assigned to a different writer, and the writer was supposed to write a story about that item. And this is just one example. By the way, so they spent $250. they earned $8,000, or yeah, it was 32 times the return. Basically, they got 32 times back their money because they wrote great stories. The story with this one was something about a boyfriend was giving trinkets to his girlfriend every time they went on a trip, and then she broke up with the guy, and she's been unloading these one at a time, and this was the last one, and it's very sentimental. And as you see there, they bought it for $149. They sold it for almost $200. So just kind of a real graphic representation of how it's not the thing so much as how you describe the thing in many instances. The most successful hosts are not just telling one story, they're actually telling 3 stories that weave together. And so we're going to talk about all 3 of those stories. And when I say tell those stories, you think of words, but everybody's heard the phrase, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, we tell a lot of our stories with photos. So it's a combination of both, and you want them to kind of integrate together, and we'll talk about that as well. All right, so I'm going to actually start with a story about a place that we lived that wasn't even a short-term rental. This actually was a place that we stayed in for a year. But everything about the story is relevant to what we're talking about today, so we thought we would include it anyway. This is just an overview photo from the air. It was a cabin. It had a shed and a garage and a stable and all this stuff, but you can't really tell whether it's good or bad or indifferent, how you would feel about that place from this. So I'm calling it a tale of 2 cabins because there are things that if it had been described one way, it could have sat empty for years on end. And so the next slide describes some bullet points about the fact that it was at the end of a 4-mile dirt driveway. It was off the grid. You had to run this loud propane generator every day for at least a couple hours to charge up the batteries. And even then, you didn't get much electricity, so you had to keep track of what you plugged in and what you turned on. You couldn't have too many things turned on at the same time. And then if you wanted to head out and do something fun, you were going to have to drive an hour and a half before you got to a grocery store or a movie theater or a restaurant. And if you wanted to stay home instead, you got to bring your bear spray every time because there's bears everywhere. Now, how many people do you think would sign up for that story? I would say not too many if you look at the cabin from that perspective. But we kind of flipped it around. After we had lived there for a year, we wrote the ad for Mike. Mike is a great guy who built that thing almost by hand with just some of his friends. And he wanted another long-term renter. And so go back for a second there, Katie. So this was a picture. That pond is right there in the background. That's me standing on a diving board that Mike built. And we used to have people, when we said we were moving from California to Montana, they'd say, "Why are you doing that?" And then we would pull out that one photo and people would go, you'd hear their breath come in, and then they would be like, "Okay, we get it. And now we know." One photo, 1,000 words, right? Okay, so the cabin, that's the cabin. And Katie's going to skim through a number of photos of the cabin, of the story that was told with the images that we put. And this was a Craigslist ad, by the way, not something where they're spending millions of dollars to draw attention to it. But we wrote them a Craigslist ad. I'm going to read you just a small snippet of what we wrote while she skims through a couple of the photos. So we called it "Escape to Your Idyllic Cabin in the Woods." You'll hardly believe this cabin is real. It meets or exceeds nearly all preconceived notions about living close to the earth in pin-drop quiet wilderness. It's a breathtaking oasis for those who would like to just commune with nature or experience peace and quiet to embark on a writing project or other work endeavors that benefit from solitude. So whether you're staring at your own pond, hiking or skiing through the woods, or held spellbound by your favorite novel out on the porch, this cabin provides unique settings that enhance virtually any activity. So it turns out Mike had 120 applicants that wanted to live in that place next, even with all the things that we talked about up front. And the whole reason that we're spending a few minutes on this story is just to orient. The cabin didn't change. The cabin was the same cabin in both cases. But if the story was you're going to have to run the generator and you're going to have to drive a long way to restaurants and such, then you get a very different kind of reaction and a different kind of response from the people that you would like to be interested in it than if you take great pictures of it and you talk about what they can do, what it has to offer rather than what it doesn't have to offer. And so that's really what we want you to keep in mind as we go through all the aspects of what you could do to tell the best story for your listing.
Yep. And all those photos we thought kind of painted a picture of the place, like you kind of got the sense of what it was, this natural oasis. And you didn't even see any of the interiors. It almost becomes secondary. You didn't see the classic living room and bedroom, and of course you would have those, but you really start to feel like, oh, I kind of get what that place is about, with all these other photos that came into play. So telling your stories, your 3 stories, really comes down to the rental story, the guest story, and then the host story. And the most important really is, I think, the rental story, because that is what you're selling. But the other 2 come into play, and they all kind of work together with how you put together your online presentation. So the rental story, through photos and words, what makes this place special? So now I'm really kind of talking about the stuff. I was trying to narrow this down for you, like what do I talk about exactly? Well, this is kind of the stuff. If you start to think of like, what is unique in my rental? And then what's the name and the tagline? So what does this rental's movie poster say? And these are more the experiences. This is the intangible stuff, the experiences that the guest would have. So you could have Mike's Oasis, off the grid, rustic charm, and tranquil wilderness. That could be a kind of a, if you think in movie posters, what is the name? And the name and the tagline don't have to be connected. It could be anything. Brian, like Rusty Pelican, doesn't have to do with ocean. The name of your place could be something different. But think about your movie poster. Chic on Camden, modern meets comfort, a block from the beach. So you can see how these start to become sort of the name of your rental, and then the title, the headline on Airbnb. You start to kind of craft like, okay, top to bottom, looking at your listing, how do you put this stuff together? So the rental story, to really start to think about how would you craft this, you could start with a list, and you start to list your favorite things. So your favorite features, favorite items with a story inside the rental, your favorite spot in the rental, and maybe even just time of day. Something that just comes to mind of that, oh, I really like this thing. And it could be, it could even be a time of day. So we have a couple of quick stories from Costa Rica. We lived there for 3 months in that house, in this small rural town in the jungles in Costa Rica, or where it was cooler, let me put it that way. And the first thing that came to mind was like, what is your favorite thing? I actually liked it when every day at 5:30, that tree in the backyard, in the background, the big tree, would get filled with these green parrots that were just crazy loud. Right at 5:30, they would fill up this tree, and it was so loud you could not talk. And this was around the time when we were recording our photo course, our online course, and I had to put in a waiver in there, say like, you might occasionally hear some noise from these parrots, because you just had to drop everything you were doing. And it was kind of nice, because it meant like, okay, I've done my days of work. It's 5:30, my day of work. And now it's time to relax, and it's evening, and we'll do some Netflix. Just the first thing that came to mind were those really loud parrots, where it was kind of funny and kind of annoying at the same time. Brian has a different memory from Costa Rica.
Well, go ahead.
Right, you used to, no, I mean, well, I can tell you, Brian spent a lot of time outside. So he would sit here on these chairs or out on a hammock and just do work on his laptop. And I thought, oh, what a cute shot to take. And it made me think of this kind of story thing where it's not even a perfect photo. It could use some editing. The lines aren't straight. But imagine that photo if we took Brian out and that was about a rental, where you could just see yourself there. We're kind of trying to get to that yearning again. Maybe you could move in a little bit closer. You're getting more of that point of view shot, and you have that scenery in the background. So this was Brian's thing of like just sitting outside and doing work in the spaces of this rental. So then thinking about the stuff that you have, this was from a virtual photo shoot we did with some customers. And these aren't photos of a particular room, right? It's just like a space in between rooms, and you can see rooms in the background. They have this propeller, they have this really cool locked space, and then this old safe door that we obviously photographed, because it's the stuff that made this place unique, all these strange things that they collected in this old building. And then on top of all the wide angles that we did of their rooms, we kind of went in closer to try to, again, create these scenes, these sort of moments. You can have one room, but lots of little settings in it. Here's where you read a book. Here's where you can do your work. Here's where you can relax with your coffee. So they had the study nook with all these cool New Yorker posters. And I remember, Brian might remember what this building used to be used for, but they had the original sort of oil spills on the wall that just gave this space a lot of character. And then on the left, the nook with the pillows, the owner said during our interview, oh, this is actually my favorite spot. And they might have had it in listing too, where I like to sit and have my cup of coffee and have a read. So we kind of closed in on that space. You can see it in this wide shot of the whole space. And this is a really cool space. You could do this even in rentals that don't have this many unique items. But you can see it here, right? But it's kind of in the background. What we wanted to do is with photos, this is what you would physically do, is just come in closer and point out, this is my favorite spot in the rental. I love 6 p.m. I have a coffee here, the light comes in, and I just relax. You're telling a story. This was one of our favorite places in a rental in New Zealand. In this hot tub, we spend a lot of time there, and even we like hang out. I have a photo of Brian just on his iPad hanging out of the hot tub here, spending time. So we set up a couple of wine glasses and a bottle of wine. And again, you're kind of coming low, and you're almost giving the guest their personal point of view. Like all you need to do is just have the guest walk into that hot tub, like create that sort of a sense of yearning. So instead of having the hot tub somewhere in the background or mentioning it in the amenities list, you want to photograph it, and you kind of want to come in close to create this sort of a special scene. So here's what we did: stage and photograph the same items that you enjoyed, the same items and scenes for your guests, because it's likely they'll enjoy them too. So something to begin with is to think about what do you like in your rental, and then recreate that for the guest. And then eventually you'll get feedback and reviews. You talk to your guests, you know what they like, and then you can kind of follow that. But this is a great way to start. So a couple of other things is, do you have a mascot? Maybe your rental does have a kind of a name like the Rusty Pelican. Is there a pelican somewhere in your rental? Is there wording that fits the theme or the mood or personality of the place? And here's one where it's not really a photo of the kitchen, right? It just is friends and family gather here. A simple sign, but we kind of wanted to get that because this place was aimed for big friends and family gatherings. And it's just something to put in the mind of the viewer again, like that just sort of fits the theme. And maybe they start to think about, oh yeah, we could gather there. So meet me by the sea, just a simple wording on a pillow. You might not think to get a close-up shot of it, but I love getting close-up shots of stuff like this. Even the silly hang in there cat posters. I would definitely get a close-up shot of that if it fits your theme, if it somehow fits the theme of your rental, the story that you want to tell. And of course, if you have an actual mascot, photograph it. If you don't have a mascot, but you have a name that could warrant a mascot, make one up. Just buy a toy, get an item, something in a coaster, or get a custom artwork from a place like Etsy or something, and take a photo of it. And maybe you can turn it into a game where you could name one of these owls, and then you can hide it around in the rental, and you can tell your guests, hey, if you can find this owl, we'll give you a little perk, like you get a free cup of coffee, or you get something like that. So you could turn it into an activity even that makes it a little bit more interesting. But definitely photograph these things. Don't just assume that people are going to notice that, oh, the place that is called the Owl's House has owls everywhere. You want to call attention to them. It's going to make it more memorable. It's going to make you stand out. And I mean, it's fun. And don't bury the lead, Brian.
Yeah, so lead is spelled L-E-D-E because it comes from the newspaper industry, where it's the first paragraph, and sometimes writers would make the mistake of taking the most interesting part and burying it down deep into the article. And what we've come across many, many times is we'll have a chat with a host, we'll look at their listing, and the story that they tell us doesn't match up with the story that they're portraying online. They'll start telling us, just spooling out fantastic gems and things that are so fascinating and interesting. And we're like, did you put a picture of that in there? No. Did you write about that in there? No. And so it's almost like being a ghostwriter. If you think of what a ghostwriter's purpose is, you're taking a celebrity or politician or whatever. The ghostwriter's job is to extract that stuff from them and write it in a way that's really interesting. Because you assume that the person, if they had written the biography for themselves, would not have known what would be interesting to people. And we find that happens sometimes. So a couple examples, back to the cabin again. Mike didn't tell us that there was a wildlife preserve. There was, I can't remember, it was some amazing amount of acreage. So no one was ever going to be on that side of the house. So it was, we could wander, we could cross-country ski, we could hike for days, and we would never encounter anybody except potentially bears. And he didn't bother to put that in the ad. And then also, it came with a cat who turned out to be one of our best buddies. His name was Darwin. He had an extra appendage, which is why they called him that. He had like a sixth thumb or one more than however many cats you're supposed to have. Great cat. He didn't bother to tell us, oh, by the way, that comes with the place. Now, if we were been allergic, he would have figured something out. But these are things that needed to be part of the story, and he was excluding them. We made sure that they went in when we wrote our version of it. This is a place near Dunedin, New Zealand. It doesn't look like much, frankly, if you look at these pictures. And in fact, I've just recently checked. There's only a couple more than this photo, the ones shown here in the whole listing. I think there's 7 or something like that. You get a little hint in one of the photos of the backyard, but Katie's going to show you a photo that we took of that backyard when we were staying there. It's amazing. I mean, it's like something straight out of Lord of the Rings. And if you were there, you would see, you can kind of pick out that there's sheep, there's cows, there's horses. There's like 6 different kinds of animals wandering around down there. So it isn't even just a static scene. Fantastic sunsets just off to the right. Just amazing. I mean, like, it makes you forget anything that might have been an issue about that small little abode. It really was all about the backyard. And then we were always hanging out back there. So that was something that she didn't include in the listing. And if we had been working for her at that time, we certainly would have emphasized. One more story that we don't have a photo for is we were talking to somebody who is a beekeeper and an organic farmer, didn't have either of those in her listing. So it was like, you know how many people, you could even create an experience on Airbnb where you're going to, teach them a little bit about how to make honey or how to harvest the various vegetables in your organic garden. I mean, there are so many interesting things that guests want to know that will put you in a separate category and set you apart, make you memorable. And you either need to figure them out for yourself, or you need to talk to people like us who are like your ghostwriter, who extract that from you and help make the listing better that way.
Yeah, we had somebody who had a rental in an olive grove where people could taste their olive oil, and they didn't have it in the listing. Why bother put that there? So my one tip for this section is how to get interesting photos that tell this kind of story. It's the I can see myself there. And I like to call these the first person shooter photos, because when I was younger, I used to play Doom and all these first person shooter games. And they're very powerful, right? Because you can see yourself there. So photos where you kind of come down to the viewer's level and show what they would see. So those kinds of photos where you have something in the foreground, almost as if you are the guest sitting there. So maybe there's a book in the foreground. Here we have a fireplace. Agatha Christie. This was a place called Marble Cottage because of after one of her characters. Here was another virtual photo shoot where we just photographed the backyard. We did all the usual wide angles. Then we came a little bit closer to the setting with the book and the wine glasses. Same place, same book. But what I really loved was this photo where we got this nice reflection. We kind of really came in close. And it's more personal. Like you can almost grab the glass through the photo, right? So this would be kind of a story. You wouldn't see this in real estate. This is more all about the story, and then you would tie this in with photo captions. We think paths are really powerful. Instead of getting a photo of a path somewhere, like a 2D version of this, you want to try to create photos, if possible, like capture photos where you can almost just put a person there. You can put the guest there again. So you are in it. You are in the photo. If this was one of those big 3D theaters, it would be very immersive. So you are standing on the path, experiencing the thing that you're talking about. So these kinds of where, as opposed to standing on the side, photographing this path, you want to be on it. If you have things like this around your rental, even if it's just a pathway from your garden to the house, we really love these with Brian, or to the beach nearby. And here's just a diving board from the pond in Montana, photo that we took for no reason, but we actually think is kind of cool because, again, you can see yourself there. You can kind of picture what it might be like to dive off into the pond. Again, this is about the story. It's not really informational. It's more, artsy, but you're weaving these stories. And again, you would tie this together with captions, how you're going to enjoy some hot chocolate by the fire when the weather gets cooler. And we probably had this in our last presentation too, but it's just another one we love. This is kind of like the photo where Brian was sitting, where you don't want to have people in it because you don't want to ruin the sort of moment where the guest can just sort of put themselves there. You want it to be empty. All it's missing is the guest. So then moving on to the guest story, and what does that mean? So your ideal guest or your guest avatar. What are their concerns? What are they worried about? And what are they looking for? And what you want to do is put them at ease that this is the perfect place for them. So, for example, with Mike, you had to be a very particular kind of person to enjoy this place. So together with the photos and the text, if we're listing and his list for long term, but same thing, you want to kind of talk to the kind of person who would enjoy this. So it's not necessarily age or gender or where they come from, but it's a person who would enjoy being remote, being off the grid, enjoying the wilderness. So you want to kind of narrow down and figure out what is it that your guest is looking for and what are they maybe worried about. So you could counter these with very simple phrases in your listing. At Atlantic Breeze, we have keyless entry for your convenience. That's one way to counter if somebody wants to check in really late and they're worried about that. Right away, you've told them, here's what we've got. And then you photograph it. You could take a photo of your keyless entry. Not a very sexy photo, but it's there. And then you have this phrase as a photo caption. At Hy-Vee's Lodge, you won't have to worry about entertainment for the kids. We have got it covered from toddlers to teens. And then maybe you photograph some stuff that you have for them. Maybe you have games for older kids or, video games or something. Again, this is addressing concerns maybe that a family might have to bring a lot of stuff. So think about your guest. What is the guest story? Your ideal guest, a family with younger kids, what are they looking for? And what are they kind of worried about? And you want to counter the objections and tell them what they want to hear with the copy. And then you want to show the stuff in your photos. And then our second tip is let the guests tell the story. So solicit story reviews from your guests during or after their stay. Ask what they liked in particular and why. So automated messaging is great for this. If you can send follow-up questions after a booking to a guest, asking them, hey, what did you enjoy in particular? When you're looking for feedback, try to get them to tell you more, not just have yes or no answers. Did you like the fireplace? Did you like the sauna? No. What did you like and why did you like it? And then you can ask, hey, is there anything we can do to improve? But you can try to kind of get these stories out of guests because then you can use those stories when they write up their reviews, or you can gather data, what your guests enjoy, and really try to promote those things in your listing. If you notice there are particular patterns, everybody comes here to bike and actually not go to the beach, then you focus on the biking. But this is just communicate with your guests, ask them what they liked, and let them tell your story for you.
Hey, Katie, can I jump in for a sec?
Mm-hmm.
So a couple
Absolutely.
of particular ways that you could do that. Some phrases that you might use are, do you have any fun stories from your time here? Just straight at it, right?
Yeah.
Have them tell you a story. What did you enjoy most, as Katie said? Describe your favorite vacation day from the week that you were here. And I have a story that pops to my mind. It wasn't really so much fun. It's just a testament to the quality of host. And if you're everybody on this line, we would expect to be the kind of host that will elicit these kind of stories. So one time we were about to go to a festival and we had a car that when we went out into the driveway had a flat, and it wasn't going to be open for that long or whatever time of day. We didn't have a lot of time to fix that and still be able to make the festival. So we just texted our host, who happened to live about 20 minutes away, and she was there with a jack in about 22 minutes. It was unbelievable. So we were on the road and got to the festival. I was like, wow, that is some serious host service. Doesn't mean that you have to be able to do that. But if we were reviewing her or any of the places that we stayed of hers, we would put that story in there and she would be able to put that in a bunch of different places. Then it's not just her saying, hey, I'm a pretty awesome host, you should really stay with me. It's a third party validation saying, she's going to go above and beyond anywhere that you need. So there's lots of different kinds of stories. They don't all have to be about some fun activity. Sometimes they're just about how cared for you are, how much of a safety net there is because the host is doing everything to make sure that things go well for you on your vacation.
Yeah, I remember that very well, Joe. She's awesome. So then your story, finally you, the guide, right? Although I'm sorry to say, it's really all about the guest, and we'll get to that here.
Before you, so StoryBrand, if everybody's familiar with StoryBrand, Donald Miller, this was the most impactful piece of how he talks about stories, is you want to make yourself the guide and the the guest is the hero. So if you think of movies, it's like you're Yoda, they're Luke Skywalker, or you're Gandalf. They're whoever's whatever part of the crew is taking
Frodo.
Yes, take Frodo. And so it's a shift, because the natural thing to think is, oh, I'm going to tell a story about me. But no, you want to make it so that you're the one who's assisting them in achieving something that they want to get. And in this case, they want to get a great vacation that isn't going to have any thing that they need to worry about. And so you're in that role of guide to make that happen for them.
Exactly. So here's a bunch of photos of me and Brian, and we're going to tell a couple of stories. Brian, can you read my maybe the first paragraph from bio? So this is from our old About Us page when we were selling the photo course. And what we decided to do, instead of write our own bios, we would write bios for each other, because we thought it might be more interesting to tell a story about another person, because it's really difficult to do it about yourself.
Yeah, I think it came up organically because neither one of us wanted to write our own. And you can use that trick, and it works pretty well. So Kati was born and raised in Finland. That means a lot when it comes to how she approaches work, photography, customer service, just about everything. In the US, we would say she's old school. She does a job to the absolute best of her ability, even if she could get away with less. And no matter how great a job she does, she's never completely satisfied. Know anybody like that?
So that's what Brian wrote about me, the first paragraph, and here's what I wrote about Brian. I slightly regret the idea of writing each other's bios, because writing is not my thing, it's Brian's. Writing and numbers. He's that rare combination who's great with language and great with math. This bio will probably be twice the length of the one he wrote for me, because he can get to the point faster. You can't slip a thought error about percentages past him. He would dance circles around the sharks on Shark Tank. At one point, I asked him to write content for our website about what our course really offers. I figured he'll mull it over like I would have and send it to me in the morning. Nope. 15 minutes later, he had it done. So damn it, there goes my coffee break. And we felt that people would kind of get a better sense of who we are as people through these bios of what we wrote about each other. And I just want to show you, this is the bio I wrote for Brian. It is twice as long as the one he wrote for me. So I was right. He can get to the point faster. So here's one of our customers, Susan, who we worked with on, we did a virtual photo shoot. And I just want to show you, this is from her About Us page from blueharborview.com. And I just want to read you what she wrote. My name is Susan, and 2 years ago I had an epiphany to return home to my roots in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, throw off the 9-to-5 workday, and to use all of my experience in tourism to run a vacation rental home. My friends thought I was crazy. They still do. But let me add that this is no ordinary vacation stay. Oh no. There aren't any cast-off furnishings or tired linens in sight. Instead, I wanted to create a luxury boutique home away from home where you can enjoy all the comforts of modern life in a chic, relaxed city setting with stunning views of Lake Superior. So this is the beginning of her About Us page. Like, this is talking about her, but as you notice, she's really talking to you, the guest who is about to book. She goes quickly from talking about herself to saying, what can you offer to the guest? What can she do for the guest? How is she going to provide a great experience? And this is a little bit further down on her page, talking about the renovations that they did on the building. Nevertheless, all the blood, sweat, and tears are worth it, because of what I've created for you is truly breathtaking. Of course, I'm a little biased, so instead, let me set the scene for you. Imagine starting your day with a cup of coffee in hand, sitting in a comfy wicker chair, overlooking the harbor as the sun rises over Lake Superior. So again, she's talked about her rental and all the renovations they went through, but then she's going again, weaving a story for you. She's again talking to the guest, very good writing, and kind of setting the stage of, yes, I'm technically talking about the rental, but really what I'm doing is telling stories and creating these scenes and these moments that the guest might enjoy. So this is the stuff that you would put into your About Us section and About Us page, and I don't want you to overlook that even on Airbnb. Don't just say, call me when you need something. Have a brief intro on who you are and how you got started. But I do mean brief. You don't have to talk for a long time about yourself. You can then go into talking about how great you are, what the kind of experience you're going to offer. Management companies, the kind of experience that your management company is going to offer. So going from yourself, again, to what you're going to do for the guest. And put a face on it. Instead of a bird, don't put a bird on it, put a face on it. Make a guest trust you by showing you're a real person, quote unquote, even with a management company. have a smiling photo of you. And I did a completely random search in Austin, Texas of Airbnbs and took a screenshot of all the hosts, just going down to fill this one slide. And I just want you to take a moment to look at these, just kind of scan through these thumbnails and see which pictures sort of pop out, the ones that sort of speak to you, the ones that you notice. And I would near guarantee it's the ones with the faces that are kind of close, that are looking at you. Those are the ones that you notice first. So you'd be tempted to put in your company logo, or maybe you don't like to be photographed, so it's kind of gonna be a blurry, artsy photo of you in a shadow. Nope. You wanna have a smiling photo of yourself, because it just, again, makes us trust more. This is how we're wired as human beings, is to respond to other people. And when we see somebody smile, we smile back. And you're creating that sort of a positive first response to you, the host, or the manager, whoever it is going to be taking care of the guests during their stay. So again, you want to think about, when you're writing your bio, how will you ensure that the guest has a great stay? And one way to do it is insert your local knowledge through information and recommendations. So this can absolutely work remotely. You want to have personalized recommendations. Here are a couple that we got from one of our actual customers. The Blind Finch, lovely French pastries and gourmet burgers, Mountain Rocks, our favorite coffee place. That's, again, personalized. That is their favorite coffee place, not just a coffee place that they Googled and happens to be down the street. And then there's another organic produce, vegetarian restaurant that's kind of specialized. And here's an email that we got from a guest. Since our communication, I have managed to secure the following: 2 free passes to the Manitoba Museum and Planetarium, located 500 meters from the loft, and a free gift with purchase from Forks Trading Company, located at the Forks. Please find a photo of the owners and I at the store. It may be good to use these in the profile. So this kind of personalized stuff, again, these become a part of your story, and you've secured something special and unique for the guest. You're making special deals with local businesses. So this is great. And I immediately know, if somebody came to my town in Finland, there's this very hip, cool, actually like rustic coffee place that's very popular with like club music. And if you want to go people watching, you have a cup of coffee there. But the actual best latte in town is from this place that's not at all as cool or as hip. But if you just want to have a quiet cup of coffee to yourself and maybe have a read, I would recommend that people go here instead. This is not going to be the #1 thing if you Google it or go to TripAdvisor, but this is my favorite coffee, and I would recommend that people go here.
And this is Mount Soledad in San Diego. So I always used to think about, whenever someone was coming to visit me when I lived in San Diego, what are the 3 or 4 things that I wanted to make sure that they got to do? And this tends to be one of the ones that gets overlooked. Everybody goes to the Coronado Hotel, which they should, and obviously they go to the beach and they do other things. But this is, you don't think of High Points when you think of San Diego. You think of it as being, elevation 0. But I forgot how high Mount Soledad is, but it is high enough that when you're standing up on that little platform, you can actually see into Mexico. You can see almost up to LA, and you have 360-degree panorama. It's very, very spectacular. And it's not like nobody knows about it, but if you were to tell people, if you had a place in San Diego and you said, make sure you go up to here, this is the kind of thing that you're going to get disproportionate credit as a host. Think of it like when you recommend a Netflix series to somebody, or somebody's recommended one to you. If you really liked it, you heap praise on them as if they were a co-producer of the thing. All they really did was say, you ought to watch this. I think you'd like it. But you all of a sudden have this huge debt of gratitude. And so people would come back to you and say, man, thanks so much for sending me to the Mount Salt. That was amazing. And all of a sudden you are just an exalted host at that point. And that's what this is all about, is doing those things. We talked about this, call back to the last presentation. We call it winning the tiebreakers. There's always going to be 3, 4, 5 places that they could stay at. And then they're going to have to make a choice amongst those ones that are in the same ballpark, price-wise, location-wise, that have all the right amenities. Why are they going to pick you over the next person? These are the kind of things that make it easy for them to pick you.
Yeah, and these things, even though you're making recommendations, they are still about you. They become a part of your story too. If you say, I'm an avid biker, these are the bike routes that I really love, you can tell that to your guest, and you've told them a little bit something extra about yourself, something personal about yourself, but really, again, you're making it about the guest, even with that. So our tip number 3, our final tip, is becoming an ambassador.
Right, which we've already been talking about for the last couple of minutes, but basically just to hammer it home, it's like, don't be restricted to just what's on your property. Think in terms of, why did they come to your town, and what do I know that they don't know? And assume they know nothing. You're never going to get penalized for going to the lowest common denominator. And you're always going to know something that they didn't know because you've lived there for some period of time, presumably. And it could be as simple as just steering them away from a bad restaurant and towards a good restaurant. So I think I might have used this before, but it's like, there's 5 sushi places that you could go to that are within, a 5-minute Uber, but don't go to these 4, go to this one. That is a major, that's a powerful piece that will make that person's vacation better, because it's just as likely that they would have picked one of the bad ones, and then it's diluting their vacation experience. And so it's a 2-for-1, because you're making their vacation better and you're getting the credit for being the cause of why their vacation was better. There's so many places that you can use this. We use something called the 3 and 3. We like to recommend 3 activity-based ones and 3 that are places that you would eat or drink. And this all ties back to Hostfully. Hostfully does an amazing job of prompting you to think of these things. The one suggestion that we have is, all that stuff tends to come towards the end of the process. In other words, when the person is already a customer of yours, and you're rightfully doing everything possible to make their stay as great as possible. We're saying, import all that stuff to the front end of the sales process. Use that as part of how you win a guest, not just how you make a guest happy. So this is about winning potential guests and giving them access to your knowledge up front about why you're the host that they should stay with, because they're going to have a fundamentally different quality of experience because of your knowledge than if they went to somebody who just listed what was in their apartment.
Yeah, and more we've actually seen listings where people take a screenshot of their guidebook and advertise it and say, hey, we provide you a guidebook with a lot of specialized information, kind of almost as a teaser, like, come check it out. We give you a lot of good info.
So back to a slide that we showed earlier. Back up one there, Katie. So we had this one in the first 10 slides, I think. Who knew you were going to need to be a professional photographer, copywriter, marketing expert? And we started out with a video course that was, aimed at giving you one more thing to do, learn a new skill. And what we evolved to over the last couple of years is, how can we take more of that burden off of you and put it onto ourselves? Because those are the 3 things that we do. And so that's the service that we provide, is helping hosts with as little input from them as necessary, so that you can keep doing the 10 or 20 or 50 other things that you know are critical to running your business. How can we upgrade that front end for you, so that you're getting more leads, more bookings, more views, and better reviews, and everything just turns into a cyclone of success where it spins upward. The more reviews you get, the better you get ranked, the more looks you get, the more clicks you get, etc., and it all works in your favor.
And Brian, you want to talk about our giveaway?
Sure. So that is a little testimonial, probably our favorite testimonial this year. But we're going to give away 2 things. If you go to that link, you're going to be able to get what we call our branding guide. And Katie will pull that up in a minute and show you just a quick look at it. It gives a lot of ideas. It gets your memory jogging. It gets your imagination going. It gives you a lot of phrases and options for how to write things. It basically digs deeper into some of the stuff that we've been talking about today. And also the free listing assessment, which we normally charge $79 for, you'll get an opportunity to sign up and book a time. Well, actually, you'll just sign up for the assessment. We'll get back to you and find a time where we can personally go through for free your listing. We'll have done some homework ahead of time, and we'll walk you through what we would do, or what you could do for yourself, or what you could hire us to do in terms of upgrading all the elements that we've been talking about today. Back to you guys.
Wow. Thank you so much, Brian and Katie. This was truly amazing. I really love spending time with you guys, and we learn every day something new. I think you guys did a great job, like telling us and basically giving some tips away of how to really tell the story. Nowadays, it's so common to go to a vacation rental and see how well they describe the property, the amenities, but they basically don't tell the story. And I think it's much more brightful when you see the story, when you know what happens behind the scene and what they actually went through to build that amazing story and that amazing vacation rental. One thing that it's my question to you right now is usually we see a lot of listings with bullet points about the property. And essentially, now you're telling us that the best way to write your descriptions, it's basically combining the picture with the story and basically tell your guests the story. Which one do you think is the best approach? Should people do bullet and stories? Should just stories? What's your tip on how to combine the stories with the pictures and the descriptions itself?
Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, well, I kind of think both, right? And this is why writing is hard, and I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. Like I said in the bio, I don't really like to write, so I understand the pain of people who are trying to come up with descriptions. But I think both. So the way we actually craft listing descriptions is we use paragraphs to kind of create a story that are informational, but we also set them at this place you can enjoy this thing, and this where the sort of, if you need to tell where the bathrooms are located and how many bedrooms you have, you can, but you can say these things are conveniently located here. You will have the best sleep ever in this whatever high thread count, some fancy mattress thing, you know. So you're kind of using these nice words that we list in the branding guide too. We did this to help me write stuff and other people after that. And then we have a couple of, we always recommend that you use bullets to list the so-called boring stuff. So you have a couple of paragraphs to tell the story, and then if you want to list special amenities, you can use bullets. And then you can say, this location is fantastic. You're a walk away from here. You're 5 minutes from there. It's really convenient to rent a car. And then you can list in bullet form the top places that you recommend that are close by with a little distance there. So you're kind of breaking it up visually. It's easier to read because you have a little paragraph that tell the story, and then you're doing a little bullet thing. And I like to go from inside the rental to outside. So you start with an overview paragraph, and then you talk about the stuff inside the rental, then their neighborhood, and then what's around town.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. And just a good reminder to everybody, we have still a few minutes. So if you have a question from Katie and Brian, please feel free to send it to us. We're going to start going over them right now. Another question that we have here is, how can I get more of my guests to submit reviews? You guys can touch on that?
Sure. So we talked about this a little bit during the presentation, that ideally what you'd like to be able to do is have something automated so that there's something that goes out maybe a day and then a week or 2 weeks afterwards that has some of these questions like, we'd love to hear, one of your stories. What was something that happened that was really fun on your trip? Or which element do you remember now that it's been 2 weeks? What stands out about what you experienced when you were at our place or in our town or something like that? Some of this comes down, if you think of Robert Cialdini had a book called Persuasion, and he talked about a number of things that play into that. And one of them was reciprocity. And you don't want to overuse this and you don't want to be manipulative about it. But when you do something for somebody, it tends to kind of create a little bit of an imbalance where they feel like they owe something back to you. And so part of the way to get better reviews is to do something that makes it so that they're thinking like, these guys were so nice to me. They went above and beyond here and here and here. And all they're asking for is this little review. I'm going to do that for them. So it's like, if you make it so that they feel like they're in the position where they kind of owe you one in a good way, then that is a very powerful way that it makes a big difference. It makes it so that it feels like it's easy for them to want to do a favor for you.
Yeah, and it could be something like chocolates, or maybe you put like milk and eggs in the fridge of your rental if that's possible. You have somebody do that for you. And you don't have to mention that in the listing, because if people, whatever people see on the listing, that is what they're paying for, right? So that is what they're expecting. So we actually do recommend, there could be some stuff that you leave as a surprise. If you put chocolates on the pillow, you know what? Maybe you don't have to photograph that. It's just a fun surprise for the guests when they arrive. And it could be a small thing like that where they go, oh, these guys are so nice. So then they kind of feel like maybe they owe it to you. So when you ask them to do this one thing, hey, can you tell us about your vacation? What was your favorite day? They're that much more likely to do it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. We do have one more question. Do you have any recommendations related to properties that leverage a property management company versus an owner managed?
So I might want to ask for a follow-up, but I'll kind of make a guess. That could go in a couple of different directions. I guess if you're saying that you're generally leaving it to the management company to handle all this stuff, and how do you get them to do some of the stuff you're suggesting? That's probably going to be on a case-by-case basis as to whether they feel like you're stepping on their toes. If you say, hey, we got some ideas for you, or you can put them in touch with us and say, look, you guys work for us. We would like you to coordinate with these guys, and we'd be happy to work with them on that. But I think that you're pointing out something very interesting, which I've seen stats that overall a single property managed by one host tends to do better on average than 10 properties that are managed by someone. Obviously, the aggregate is going to be bigger for the 10, but there is an advantage to being able to devote a lot of attention to one place and be able to do all these personalized kinds of things that we're talking about. But that should not let the management company off the hook in terms of saying, like, well, we know you're a management company, so you don't have to be that specific. You want them to be able to go to that very personal degree on every property that they're managing. And that should be the hallmark of a great management company, is that they are able to treat everyone as a unique and special property.
Yeah, and when you're writing descriptions, I think at the very top, I always like it. If there is a management company, I want to know. I want to know whether it's a management company or not, usually. And I like it when it says, hey, Batch Break Taranaki welcomes you to this region. We provide a X kind of experience. So I like it when you're upfront and you kind of tell me the kind of experience that you're going to give. It's always going to be great, right? But still state it. Still tell me that we try to make sure that the guests have the best time and that we give a lot of local knowledge. So management company doesn't have to be sort of faceless, nameless thing in the background. I like it when they make it a bit more personal too.
Absolutely. Another question here, Brian and Katie. You guys mentioned about some hosts that really go above and beyond to create great experiences to the guests, but somehow those stories are not really mentioned on their listing. What do you think is the best way to tell the guest on your description, but what's the best way to mention those stories without sounding really biased, without like providing, a great explanation, but not just telling about like what you do directly to the guest?
Right. Well, one thing we do is when you do good reviews, you can take, even if you just have a guest book with handwritten reviews, we actually sprinkle our descriptions with reviews. So we do one or two, we pull the best up, and sometimes it's just spot on. Like they have a really awesome mattress. People really care about mattresses. They want a good night's sleep, right? So I have this memory foam mattress, and some guest happens to mention I slept just like a baby on this mattress. It was unbelievable. I was so happy that, so then you could pull that one quote and use it in a photo caption in the bedroom, right? You have a photo of the bedroom, you can even pull that review and use it as a photo caption, and we do that too. So hearing from other guests is better than you saying it. And at the end of the caption, we don't just put it in quotes, we say who the person was and when they reviewed it. So it's not just a random quote, and so they could actually go back and find the review somewhere if they wanted to. So that's one way to do it, where you don't just keep saying like, oh, we provide an awesome experience. Then of course the whole presentation comes into play, but I mean, you really, not to toot our own horn, but you want to have really professional photos. You want to have like good quality photos. You want to have enough coverage of your place where you don't just have 5 photos of the inside and a couple of the outside. And your crowd is cream of the crop, so I'm preaching to the choir. They're not going to have 10 listing photos. But I'm just saying, get enough coverage and don't just limit yourself to the wide angle of a living room, wide angle of a bedroom. Going close and look at your list of things that you mentioned, like my favorite time of day, in the morning, having coffee in the morning light over here. Recreate the scene for the guests. They'll probably like it too. So yeah.
That's
yeah. Great. I mean, this could also be a webinar in itself, but like, how do you, both of y'all use
I know, it could.
social media as like a platform to kind of promote your properties? Which again, like I said, could be a whole nother webinar. Maybe we can chat about it next time.
Social media is perfect for this stuff. Like, say you have a couple of, and you should keep your listings alive too, but say you have like 40 to 50 standard listing photos and maybe a 40 and you rotate a couple every now and then because you should. It keeps the listing, the SEO happy. But Instagram is perfect for that kind of stuff where if you're at the rental, you just feel like, oh, what an amazing sunrise or something. You grab a photo and you put it on social media. So that's a perfect way to tell the stories or get little artsier close-up shots, or like, here's the owl, he's hiding behind the fireplace, or something like that, that all fits your story and fits your brand. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
That's awesome. Thank you, everybody, for sending all the questions. Unfortunately, we are on the top of our time. We got to be respectful to everybody and to Kati and Brian again. So I'd like to thank you all for being with us in one more Hostfully webinar. It's super fun. It was super helpful. I think we got a lot of important messages from Kati and Brian. And again, to me, I think the final message is you should always have great pictures, great descriptions, and great stories. And also use all of that to sell to your guests, not just when they're creating, just when you're creating the experience for them, but before, when you're actually selling your property to them. So if is there anything that Brian, Kati, or Pedro, or Frank, or Hostfully can help you with your business, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you, to help the industry. We know how important it is to automate everything, to use a guidebook, to share all those beautiful stories. So if is there anything we can help you guys, please reach out to us directly. All right, Kati and Brian, thank you so much again for your time today. It was amazing. One more chat. If everybody should expect an email from us. This webinar is being recorded, so we're going to send it to everybody. There's a lot of people asking about that. We will also share the slides with you. And if you want to get the free assessment from Kati and Brian, don't forget to get into their website and basically send your information to them. All right. Thank you so much again. We look forward to having you guys on our next Hostfully webinar, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Brian. Bye, Kati.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.